Thank you very much, Jacques. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be here to see many old friends. I've been asked to give you an overview of the objectives of the meeting, but allow me to start with sort of perhaps a more personal note. I published my first paper on dengue 1983. That's, my God, that's 33 years ago. And for the next 20 years, I was really into the science, doing experiments in the lab, going to conferences, talking about the various scientific theories around the pathogenesis of dengue. And then in 1999, I joined the WHO. And that was a turning point, because at that point I realized that improving health is not just about publishing papers. Improving health is about actually making use of the knowledge that we generate. And many of you here have worked for WHO. I'm sure that realization of suddenly moving from academia to an international public health agency was a real eye-opener for many of us. So in a way, for me, it's like a journey from knowing to doing. And that personal story, I think, has quite a lot of bearing on this meeting for the next 2.5 days. So I'm just going to quickly give you an overview of what the objectives are. And I like to use the metaphor, if I may, of climbing over a brick wall. And my starting point here is that we are currently facing a brick wall in the way we think about the full public health value of vaccination, or FPHV. So during this meeting, I hope we'll make an attempt to go over that brick wall. In other words, moving from the generation of knowledge to develop vaccines to actually using the product for vaccination and improving public health. So if you imagine the brick wall in the middle, our current thinking, our current focus is very much on the following, on the various candidate vaccines, on the various clinical trials, phase 3, phase 4, issues around efficacy and effectiveness. Importantly, a great focus on risk, on safety. And this, just my own personal view, very much at the individual level. Our focus also is on suitability, which target populations do we target, are there regional variations in the case of dengue or the different serotypes, etc., etc. And of course, a lot of emphasis on cost-benefit analysis. And in terms of the players, of course, we are really focused on the people who have done the fantastic R&D work, the researchers, and at that point, of course, the regulators that are in charge of approving and licensing the vaccine. So what we need, or what we hope to do during this meeting, is to get over this brick wall and to sort of take into account what's on the other side, which I believe represents what we mean by the full public health value of preventive vaccination. So what's on this other side? I think we need to sort of consider the importance of post-licensure studies to further determine safety, efficacy, and effectiveness at the population level, reducing disease burden and transmission in populations rather than a focus on individuals, reducing frequency and size of outbreaks, importantly, impacts on programs and health systems, especially during epidemics. Also to take into account social and economic benefits, and very important issues of equity, access, affordability, and acceptance. And in terms of the stakeholders, in a sense, we need to broaden it to also include the recipients, that is, the community, the policy and decision makers, and importantly, the program managers. So how are we going to do this over the next 2.5 days? So the objective really is to advance discussion on the definition, evidence, and communication of the FPHV. Firstly, by challenging the definition of what constitutes the full public health value of vaccines, to review examples and case studies of public health value with various existing vaccines used in either outbreak settings or in endemic situations? Are there lessons that we can learn from these case studies? Thirdly, to propose designs, measures, and outcomes for assessing FBHV in phase 3 and phase 4 trials, and an integrated hybrid phase 3, phase 4 strategy. To apply these concepts to specific vaccines, and we will hear on these various vaccines in the next 2.5 days. And finally, to strategize on how to communicate the FBHV of vaccines to regulatory and program policymakers. In terms of the meeting structure and format, we're going to kick off with 2 introductory keynotes, first by Brad Gessner on the key principles and broader measure of FBHV. And JP Sevilla will then discuss with us the different ways of measuring the full public health benefits of vaccination with an emphasis on social rate of returns. And then, as you can see from your programs, we're going to have sort of 5 sessions with a lot of very, very good speakers on socioeconomic aspects, impact on health system during epidemics, beyond traditional efficacy measures, what I mentioned, case studies of endemic and epidemic scenarios, value of pre- and post-licensure evaluations of phase 3 and 4 trials. And the final session will be on the view of policy and decision makers on FBHV. And indeed, you will see that we are indeed very fortunate to have some very senior, very key policymakers to join us in this particular conference. And finally, Kate O'Brien is going to give us a summary at the end and hopefully point us to the way forward. So in terms of overall messages, this is my own reading of what this meeting is all about, that we really need a broader, better, and more inclusive understanding and definition of the full public health value of vaccination, that we need to move beyond safety and efficacy to additional measures and strategies which have the broader aim of assessing reduction of disease burden and, importantly, reducing inequities. And that finally, we need sort of a mindset change and innovation to develop implementation strategies which incorporate the full public health value of preventive vaccines into the evidence-based decision-making process of both licensure and programmatic public health use. So finally, my own view, this conference is about how we climb over that brick wall. Randy Pausch, an American computer scientist, had this to say about brick walls. The brick walls are there for a reason. The brick walls are not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. And one day, I hope, we actually eliminate the wall and work together towards a common goal. Thank you very much, Jab.